There are times when this world drifts too close to the fabric of reality, and I can hear something calling me from beyond that veil. Sometimes when I get too close, I can feel that thing on the other side tugging at the corners of my mind. I'm worried about Carlos. He doesn't seem to be taking it so well. In case you don't know, I work at a shitty gas station at the edge of our small town, and weird things have been happening as long as I can remember, as long as I've been here. I finally started to tell some of my stories. If you haven't caught up yet, I would like you to visit part 1 and 2. When I returned to work after my post yesterday, I was delighted to find a stack of receipt papers sitting neatly on the register counter with notes written on them in my own shaky handwriting. I don't remember writing all of the notes, but then again, I don't remember a lot of things. It is possible that I'm working too hard, or maybe the fumes coming from beneath the gas station are playing tricks on me. Or perhaps it's just the other side trying to affect my condition. At any rate, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. Or any other animal in any other orifice, for that matter. Admittedly, my handwriting isn't the best, and at times the scratches on that receipt paper become nearly ineligible. So, if anything herein seems unbelievable, it's probably because I copied it wrong. With that in mind, this is my best effort at the transcription. 7 o'clock. It's getting dark early these days. 7:30. Farmer Jr. came into the gas station tonight, asking about the hand plants. I told him that there weren't any more. He left his phone number scribbled on the back of a coupon for 15% off bulk pig feed from an online retailer. I think he's trying to send me a message. 9 o'clock. I think some kids may be playing a prank on me. I found a lawn gnome behind the pork rinds. I didn't think much about it, and I put him in the box behind the counter. But then I found another matching lawn gnome in the soda case. I added this one to the box as well. It wasn't until I noticed the third and fourth lawn gnomes that I started to suspect something. I had taken out the garbage and found the gnomes perched up top a branch next to the dumpster, staring down like gargoyles. I used a chair and a broom to knock them down, and I put them in the box with the other 3. When I got back to my desk, I found a note in my chair written in red ink, and it simply said, "I'm in the walls." I don't know who wrote it, but the notes smell like oranges and plumeria. 10 o'clock. There's a strange scratching noise coming from the tiles above the cash register. I fear Rocco and his brood may have infiltrated the building again. 11 o'clock. Farmer Jr. called the store. He asked about the hand plants. I assured him that they weren't there anymore, and if they ever showed up again, I would call him. I think he's beginning to suspect that I'm lying. 12 o'clock. One of the cultist recruits wandered in from the community in the woods. They hate when I call them cultists. I know the recruits aren't supposed to interact with the outside world, but from time to time they sneak into town, never any further than this gas station, and buy cigarettes. They're supposed to try to recruit new members until they graduate to be honorable senior cultist status. But this one isn't a very good cultist. I know they aren't supposed to have names, but I'm going to call this one Marlboro. I'll let you guess why. Marlboro stayed in the store for at least a half an hour trying to convince me to go back to the compound with him. They hate it when I call their home a compound. He tried to appeal to my logical side, but I let him know politely yet firmly that I was not interested in logic. I can't remember when he left. 2 o'clock. I found myself digging again. Sometimes on slow nights, I let myself drift. My mind goes somewhere, and when I come to, I wonder, where was I just now? Who was controlling my body while I was gone? My body did those things I've done so many times before that I guess my body just learned how to do them without me. My body restocked the cigarettes, rotated the drinks in the frozen drink machine. My body scraped the mold off the bottom of the ice buckets. My body emptied the rat traps, and somewhere along the day, my body found a shovel, went out back, and started digging a hole. Actually, I shouldn't say started digging. I have been, or rather my body has been digging this hole off and on for the last few months. Usually, I come to after a few shovelfuls. This time, I added another foot deep before I snapped back to reality and asked myself, what the hell am I doing? 3:30. I just noticed the door at the end of the hallway past the walk-in cooler. How long have I worked here and never noticed this door before? It seems disappointingly ordinary as far as doors go, except for the fact that it's warm to the touch and feels like it's vibrating. I tried the handle, but it's locked. When I got back to my register, I noticed a man in a trench coat standing outside beyond the gas pump, just outside the reach of our lights, dangerously close to the road. I can't tell if he's looking at me or if he's looking past the building at the woods on the other side. I wish he wouldn't stand there like that, stoic and still, with his arms reaching down past his knees. The scratching against the tiles in the ceiling over the counter is getting louder. 3:45. A man came into the store, rolling a large white ice chest behind him. He had sunken eyes and wiry hair coming out of his nose and ears, long bony fingers and paper-thin skin revealing every blue and green vein beneath his translucent dermis. He wore a bowler cap and smelled like milk. I had definitely never seen him around before. He asked if I would be interested in partnering with him. He sold ground meat at discount prices, but I told him that our store didn't do well with the fresh foods category, recommending he try his hand at marketing jerky. Before he left, he scooped about a pound or so of raw ground meat from the ice chest onto a piece of parchment paper and gave it to me as a sample. Only once he had left, I took the meat into the cooler where I found another lawn gnome waiting for me. I put the lawn gnome in the box with the other 7. 4 o'clock. Carlos just told me something strange, very strange, about Kiefer. 4:30. There was a kid named Spencer Middleton who went to our high school, the same high school as me and Kiefer. Spencer was just a year ahead of me, but looked much older and acted much younger. I live in a small town, and a small town gets bored. For entertainment, some turn to gossip, some turn to more sinister pastimes. The latter often fueled the former. There were rumors around the town that Spencer liked to torture and kill animals. Rumors that Spencer's parents and siblings always locked their doors when they went to sleep at night. Rumors that didn't slow down any after the fire at Spencer's house, where Spencer was the only one that escaped unscathed. Once I saw Spencer gleefully stomp on a lizard, throw his head back, and laugh. A short time after his house caught on fire, for the second time, Spencer left town. The story went that he had gone off and joined the army. I didn't know what to think about that, so I simply didn't think about it. I would have been perfectly happy to never think about it again, but after all these years I'm forced to. Because Spencer Middleton just came into the store and bought a cup of coffee. He's sitting in one of the booths, talking to Kiefer. Marlboro is back. He asked if I could spare some time to talk about his fake religion. They hate it when I call it a fake religion. I told him he had to leave. He seemed upset. 4:45. Spencer and Kiefer sat around for a while, but they didn't buy anything but 2 cups of coffee. When they finally left, I let Carlos know. He'd been hiding under a blanket in the walk-in cooler, although I really don't understand why. Carlos explained to me exactly what happened. He finished his shift a couple nights ago and just left the gas station when he saw Kiefer's SUV pulled over in a ditch at the bottom of the hill. Carlos, being the good guy that he is, decided to check and see if Kiefer needed any help. He says that when he pulled up and got out of the car, he could hear what sounded like a loud crunching noise coming from beyond the tree line. Carlos went to investigate, and that's when he saw something. When I asked Carlos what he saw, he just started speaking in Spanish in a fast, panic sort of way. I don't speak Spanish, but I nodded along empathetically. The only word I could pick up was Strega, which is a name of liquor we carry. Whatever it was that Carlos saw, it made him race back to the car as fast as he could and backed out quickly without looking. And that's when he ran over Kiefer. Carlos is a good guy, but he was in a bad situation. He stopped long enough to get out, check on Kiefer, and confirm that he definitely was dead. There was nothing he could do to change that fact. It was an accident, and Carlos was on parole. There was that thing in the woods, and Carlos had to make a decision. So he heaved the body into his trunk and drove off. Carlos took me to his car where he showed me the body. I can confirm 100% that it was Kiefer in the trunk of his car. Not because of his unmistakable face, but because of his phone, wallet, and other things that he would have kept in his pockets. 5 o'clock. I finally got tired of the scratching and pulled the ladder out of storage to see what the raccoons were doing in the ceiling. But when I pulled back the tile, the only thing up there was another gnome. That makes a dozen so far. 6 o'clock. The man in the trench coat is still outside. The cultist came back in, demanding I have an audience with him, insisting that if I would just listen to him, I would see his reasoning is superb and flawless, and that I would be a fool not to join him in his perfection of logic and nirvana that is his belief structure. I agreed to listen to his pitch if he would ask the man in the trench coat to leave. Our hasty verbal contract in place, I steeled myself to listen. Honestly, he did make a few good points, but I suppose that is to be expected from a viral thought experiment strong enough to convince perfectly normal people to abandon their real lives and go live in a commune in the woods past a shitty gas station on the edge of town. They call themselves the mathematists. They believe that humankind exists to fulfill two moral imperatives: to decrease suffering and increase happiness. A successful life increases happiness more than suffering. A decent life decreases suffering more than happiness. How good a person is can be determined by the spread between happiness increased and suffering decreased. Obviously, if the individual has a negative spread, that is, if they've increased happiness less than they've increased suffering, or they increase suffering less than they decreased happiness, then that means, very simple, the individual is bad. Therefore, if an individual causes a tremendous amount of happiness and suffering, one can simply determine which is higher, and use the perfect rubric to determine whether the individual was good or bad. Simple, right? The mathematists believe that the world has been going about good and bad in the wrong way. For eons, we've been attempting to increase happiness, when instead we should have been focusing on decreasing suffering, as happiness is a fluid concept. The more happiness you create, the harder it is to sustain, as happiness has a clear set of diminishing returns. Suffering, however, is consistent. Suffering results from happiness coming in and coming to an end. Suffering is pure and eternal. For a mathematist to be supremely good, they must simply end all suffering. That is why the mathematists are working on a bomb to destroy the entire planet. By ending all life on Earth, they end an infinity of suffering onto the future. With every life they avert, an entire lineage of people that have been born into a life of suffering will no longer be. Every death is a preemptive mercy killing. Every happy moment will no longer occur, pales in the face of all the sad moments that are likewise prevented. And so Marlborough explained their murder cult believes that killing is kindness. I told him that his ideas were stupid and that now he had to go tell the man in the trench coat to go away. 6:30. The phone rang. This is strange for two reasons. First, because it was not the landline, it was a cell phone, even though we don't get cell service all the way out here. And second, because it was the cell phone, the one that I took off Kiefer's body. I'll admit, I was stuck in a bit of a moral quandary. On one hand, Carlos had killed someone. On the other, it was an accident and Carlos' parole officer might not see it that way. I thought I would have more time to figure this out, but when the cell started to ring, I knew I had to make a decision. I answered it. I didn't speak first. The voice on the other end was one that I recognized. "You have something that belongs to my boss." It was Spencer Middleton. "His cell phone and his wallet?" I answered. "What? No. We don't care about that shit. We can buy more phones. We can get more wallets. You know what we want." He was right. I did. "It was an accident," I explained. "We know. We want to make a deal. You give it back and we pretend this whole thing didn't happen." "Can we do that?" "Absolutely." 7:30. Carlos came in for his shift a half an hour ago. I explained the deal to him. He wasn't thrilled, but as I laid it out very clearly, he didn't have a choice. We parked Carlos' Camry behind the gas station near the growth of ham plants and made it a point to stand far enough away not to get our ankles grabbed. Kiefer's SUV drove up a few minutes later. Spencer was driving. He and Kiefer got out without a word, sized us up, and opened up the back of the vehicle. Carlos popped the trunk. Kiefer and I stared at each other, keeping eye contact the whole time while Carlos and Spencer transferred the body from one vehicle to the other. Spencer had a tarp and the blanket ready to wrap everything up. When it was over, Kiefer put his hand on my shoulder and whispered in my ear, "You done good." Then they left. Carlos started crying as I went back inside the store. It was almost daytime, and that's when the new part-timer was supposed to take over. 8 o'clock. The new part-timer was late, and I'm overdue for a lunch break. I made the best of my extra time by putting price stickers on all the lawn gnomes. We're ringing them up as miscellaneous groceries for $9.99 each. I've already sold a couple. I'm a really good employee. 8:30. I went to the bathroom and saw a man standing there, jeans at his ankles. He wore red and white checkered boxers and a cowboy hat. He smiled when he saw me and simply said in a somewhat sing-song voice, "Come on, man. Come on with it." I took the opportunity to ask him something that has been burning in the back of my head. "Do you know, is everything going to be okay?" The bathroom cowboy took a second to think. He pulled up his pants, fastened his enormous belt buckle, walked past me, spurs clinking on the bathroom tile. He stopped for a second, when he was right next to me, and said, "I appreciate it." Then he left. I honestly have no idea what that means. These are the entirety of the receipt paper notes, but I did make a point to continue keeping this journal. I think this will be a healthy way of chronicling everything that happens at the gas station. Maybe this will even help my condition. I don't know. Next time something strange happens, maybe I'll come back and write more. Until then, I guess this is going to be continues. Edit. Sorry. On further inspection, I realized that some of the scribbles on the receipt paper may have been transcribed incorrectly. I also made some adjustments to the spelling and fixed some typos. While I was at it, I added another typo just for the observant reader. Lastly, upon the advice of some of my readers, I removed the part where I listed the Farmer Jr.'s social security number and address. Also, special thanks to the reader that pointed out that strega isn't even a Spanish word. I asked Carlos about it when he came in his 4th shift today. Carlos simply looked at me blankly and said that he doesn't speak Spanish.